What's up, guys? I got a brand new video for you today, and I want to sit down and just talk to you guys like I used to do in the old days. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but if you're here to listen, maybe put me on in the background and go do something else. Also, have you guys heard the specs on the new EOS R5? It's got freaking 8K video. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that camera. We're going to talk about the A7 III today. So, the A7 III launched in early spring 2018, and if we fast forward to 2 years later right now, I'm still rocking the A7 III as my main camera, and this thing has been rock solid. I've worked with this camera. I've worked it so hard, photo shoots, concerts, full day shoots on behind the scenes sets. You know, I've even shot some music videos with it. And it has never let me down. It's never froze. It's never overheated. It's never crashed. And I'm still on firmware version 1 because it's working so well. Why would I want to possibly make the camera unstable? I've done firmware updates in the past on other cameras, and it made the camera only less reliable. So I don't really care about the improved autofocus updates that it's gotten, the Animal IAF. So I'm just going to leave it on firmware version 1 because it's still working amazing. The autofocus is still good. There's no reason to update it. Now, this camera isn't perfect, but in a way it is perfect for the money. I think it's easy to get caught up in new camera hype, and I've made videos about this before. And I've come to realize that the specs are one thing, but the reliability and usability are another thing. And lots of new cameras with better specs have come out since the A7 III. And the camera doesn't shoot 10-bit video, doesn't shoot 4K 60, and the 4K that it does shoot is only 100 megabits per second. But it does shoot nice 1080p, 120 FPS, and the 4K image is nice as well. Even though the low bit rate that it has doesn't give you a lot of room to work with in post, it kind of keeps the file sizes smaller and manageable, which I think has made it perfect to shoot all my YouTube stuff with. And I think it's also why so many YouTubers also use this camera. Either way, as a hybrid camera, it basically does anything you could want, and it does it well. I made a list of things I love about this camera, and most of these things are basically unique to this camera. First is the insanely consistent, predictable autofocus in video, and I've shot with a lot of newer cameras since the A7 III's come out, and nothing compares. And, you know, like, I don't know if it's Sony's algorithms or the lenses, because basically all the Sony lenses are silent, smooth, and accurate. And I think this camera just has the best autofocus in its class and price, you know, out of all the cameras that have come out. Now, the second thing is also related to autofocus, and that's the continuous eye autofocus in photos. And I made a video about this a couple months ago, how to never miss a shot by using my specific settings. So if you want to check that video out, I'll put a link up above. I love that I can just be in single point autofocus, move the point around with the joystick, and when I want to use IAF, I have a program to the back button. I just hold that down when I want to use it, and boom, now it's locked to the eye. I know there's been newer firmware updates that have made it possible to use on a half press on the shutter, but honestly, I want to have the control over when I want to use it, and that's the most amazing thing about this camera, is that I can program that. Any other camera I've used, you have to turn the IAF on, and it's just always on, and sometimes if it's not the right scenario, you're going to miss shots, and you might not actually want it to be on. So I like having the control over it on this camera. The third thing is having the ability to punch into APS-C mode. I found this super handy if I'm on set shooting behind the scenes and I feel like I need more reach, that my 24-70 isn't enough. And I have the trash button programmed on the back here to punch into APS-C mode. And now that turns my 70mm into 105mm. And you don't lose quality. You can still shoot 4K video. Obviously, you're going to lose quality on photos. It jumps to 10 megapixels, but for video, it's amazing. And the fourth thing is the battery life. I'm sure you've all heard by now good things about the Z battery, and it's true. The camera runs for hours and hours, and it's just one battery. Can easily get through an entire day on like one battery and maybe 1.5 batteries, and that's with the screen brightness cranked. Just so I don't blab on and make this video super long, I'm going to end it here on the fifth thing that makes this camera awesome. And this is especially good for hybrid shooters, and that's jumping between photo and video modes. It's so fast. As long as you have your video quality and your frame rate set beforehand, you can be in photo mode, taking pictures, and if you quickly want to shoot video, all you have to do is hold down the record button and it starts shooting video. So there's no like switching modes from video to photos and waiting for the camera to switch over. And it's super handy, especially if you're doing hybrid shooting. So those are some of the reasons why I think the A7 III is still one of the best full-frame mirrorless cameras under $2,000. And I just went on B&H's site to look at the price, and it's actually on sale for $17.98 with a charger, extra battery, and SD card. So that's a really, really good deal. Obviously, this camera isn't perfect. Sony cut a lot of corners in some areas to save money, weather sealing, the EVF and the screen. The screen sucks. The EVF isn't really all that great compared to some of the other cameras out there, but this doesn't impact the image quality, and that's the main thing I'm okay with. The low light performance, the dynamic range, the autofocus are all things that matters, and that's where this camera delivers the best performance. I hear people bash the Sony color science all the time, and it's usually people who shoot with Canon or Fuji. But what, you don't think that I'm not picky about color as well? Of course I am. I have no complaints over the Sony color science. I think the images are amazing coming out of this camera. Obviously, it's not perfect straight out of camera like something like the Fuji, but what you can achieve with a little bit of effort in post is amazing. The images are really easy to work with. And when it comes to video, I found that the colors look really good when you shoot in HLG2 with a slight grade. But I'll make a separate video about shooting video on this camera in HLG2 because it deserves its own video. Anyway, if you want to check out the review I did for this camera nearly 2 years ago, I'll link it below. So, where does it put this camera in 2020 with all the new stuff supposedly coming out, especially if the A7 IV is rumored to be coming out later this year? I can't see it being drastically better, just going based off what Sony did with the A7R IV to the A7R III. I mean, look at all the stuff we can already create with this camera, and I don't feel like it's holding me back. Maybe 4K 60 with a higher bitrate would be nice, but I doubt Sony's going to be putting that in the A7 IV. So these are just some things I have on my mind after shooting with this camera for so long now. I thought I would just share my experience with you guys. So let me know in the comments what you guys are shooting with, and if you're excited for the new rumored cameras coming out in 2020. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked this video, give it a thumbs down twice. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't buy this remote, it sucks. No. Oh, I turned it off.